Welcome to the DWI Guide podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle, and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the DWI guy, Jake Minnick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to another episode of the DWI Guide podcast. Today is November 11th, Veterans Day, so a very special thank you to those that are listening that are veterans, who served in the military, who are actively serving in the military. You are the true freedom fighters, so thank you so much for your service to our country. Each November, our firm has an initiative to help military, both current and former military, review the possibility of expunging criminal charges from their record. Anybody that is eligible, whether it's as a result of a case that is dismissed or a conviction, is welcome to contact us about that. If you know somebody that might be eligible or is interested in that, we would love to help them. If you are an attorney that is interested in helping in our initiative, please send us an email. help@minnicklaw.com would be the email to send that to, and let us know that you are interested in helping us do pro bono expunctions for veterans. Again, we do that every November. This year, we created a video for veterans, so I'm going to go ahead and play that for you.
To all our veterans and those currently serving in the armed forces, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing now. Stay vigilant out there. Thank you for giving me a reason to put this helmet on.
Thank you for protecting our life, liberty, and freedom.
Thank you so much for keeping us safe.
Thanks for defending our rights. Thanks for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for defending our freedom.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for making America a better place.
I just want to say a big thank you to all of the troops and veterans out there protecting and serving our country.
Thank you for your service and your sacrifice for our country.
From my heart, thank you for your service and your sacrifice.
Again, if you can help us in this initiative to help our veterans, we would love for you to participate. So the expunctions topic kind of opens up a can of worms that I think a lot of us get asked frequently by clients, whether it's a potential call or kind of during the period of representation or after we have concluded the case. And the question is, how long is this DWI going to stay on my record? How long is the DWI going to stay on my record? Well, unfortunately, the DWI, if you're convicted of the DWI, will stay on your record permanently. So let's talk for a few minutes about kind of how long a DWI stays on somebody's record, what expunctions there are available related to a DWI, and then kind of how to view that in the context of an individual case. A DWI, again, stays on a person's record permanently. It is coded as a traffic charge in North Carolina, and like all traffic charges, whether it's a speeding ticket, running a stop sign, driving with revoked license, DWI, if these things go on your driving history, they remain permanently on your driving history, and therefore they remain permanently on your criminal history. So if there is a conviction for a traffic coded charge, it is very difficult to get that charge expunged. Best route to having it expunged would be to go in, reopen the case through the process of a motion for appropriate relief, and then basically get a alternative form of disposition on the case other than a conviction. So if person is convicted of a DWI, it stays on their criminal history permanently. stays on their driving history permanently. Some people, though, are asking this question: how long will a DWI stay on my record for other reasons? So we know from a sentencing side of things that a DWI really only is a gross aggravator for a 7-year period. So if there is a prior conviction within 7 years of the date of the new charge, and there's some ways to kind of play with these timelines that generally only are going to benefit the state. But basically, after 7 years, if the client receives a new DWI, then that prior conviction will not kind of radically change things in regards to sentencing. So some clients are kind of curious when they're talking about, I thought this thing came off my record after 7 years. That's probably what they're referencing. I thought this was only going to be on my record for 7 years. No, it's on your record permanently, but it's only going to be used as a gross aggravator for 7 years. Other clients will say, well, I thought it fell off my record after 3 years. And what they might be referencing is how long it could impact their insurance. So, basically for a 3-year period following a conviction, a DWI can cause an increase in insurance rates. And again, a lot of times when a client is asking, doesn't this fall off my record after 3 years? That's what they might be referencing. So there are different periods for how long a DWI is going to cause problems with getting driver's license reinstated, so period of revocation, when they could get their CDL back, how long until they can get a carry and conceal handgun permit, which is a 3-year waiting period, how long it's going to be before this doesn't impact their insurance anymore, how long before it's not counted as a gross aggravator. So there are a number of time frames where after you reach that specific time period, the DWI no longer has the same consequences that would have had within that relevant time frame. But in terms of the actual actually being on the record, that stays on the record permanently. It does not come off the record unless there is a dismissal or a not guilty verdict entered. So dismissal by DA, dismissal by court, not guilty verdict entered, finding of no probable cause by the magistrate judge. There has to be a non-conviction entry final disposition for there to be an expunction. The fact that a DWI conviction can never be expunged is a major reason to take a close look at the beginning of the case as to whether or not the case can be beaten. The case can be contested. The guilty verdict can be undone or never achieved, because you only are going to get one shot at that. So when a client comes into the office and they're looking at the case and they maybe call in and say, hey, I don't think there's any way to attack this, let's just plead guilty. You need to kind of at least go through that process of, this is never a case that can be removed from your criminal record should you choose to plead guilty. There's no way to undo this conviction once there is a conviction entered. So being very clear about that with the client up front, understanding the long-term consequences this DWI is going to have is extremely important in zealously advocating for your client. So making sure that they're aware of the long-term impact of the charge. When looking at it for somebody that has immigration concerns or immigration status problems, if you don't have residency, this can cause major impact on immigration. And so once that guilty verdict is entered, even if it's undone, it's really difficult in the eyes of immigration to kind of undo the impact of a guilty plea. Even if it was later somehow reversed or whatever it might be, the admission to the charge for immigration purposes may be enough. Same thing in regards to the military. major impact that this could have in terms of being able to move up in rank. For officers in certain branches of the military, this is going to basically cause commission status to be lost. So this really could be a massive problem in terms of being able to maintain current employment, maintain immigration status, keep doors open for future employment. And so that's not to say that you should attack every DWI. There's a lot of cases where a plea is the not only kind of a good choice, but the right path to move forward on for the client. And ultimately, it's the client's decision, but that very well may be the best path to move forward on. But you want to explore what the consequences are going to look like for a case that cannot be reversed. If you're giving advice about somebody that has a misdemeanor possession of drug paraphernalia charge that is going to be able to be expunged even if there's a conviction entered in 5 years, that is a very different process than if you are looking at a case that can never come off a person's criminal record. And so I don't think, while there's a lot of people that are under the impression that a DWI could be on the record for a while, I actually think there's very few clients that realize that when they are charged with the DWI, if they are convicted in 50 years under our current laws, that DWI will still be on their record. There is no ability to get that removed at any point in the future from the record. So making sure that is clear is just a really good course of representation, a really important part of being a good counselor. Making sure that they're aware of the consequences of the plea that they're going to enter if that's the way that they're going to move forward with the case. If there is a conviction entered, there's no ability to expunge the charge. If there is a not guilty verdict entered or a dismissal of the case, then you can file to have the charge expunged as long as the person meets the other requirements of a expunction in North Carolina for a dismissed or not guilty entry. One of the big things on that front is that the person cannot have been previously convicted of a felony. So you have to check and make sure that there's no felony convictions. There are some other criteria for meeting that type of expunction of eligibility status, but that is something that you should offer as part of your service to the client. If that's the way that the case goes, you should offer to the client, hey, we'll fill out an expunction for you because it's easy. It takes probably 10 minutes of you or your staff's time, requires a signature. There's no filing fee. It is a very small amount of effort that is required on an attorney's end to file this paperwork, and it is of enormous potential benefit to the client. So with just a small amount of work on your end, you can really increase your case value, your experience value to the client. So make sure that you kind of go through that process and offer that to the client. Finally, while it's important to let the client know that if they're convicted, the case cannot be expunged in the future, while that's important to note, I think that many clients put way too much of a negative kind of long-term life consequence on a DWI conviction. I think a lot of clients believe that if they are convicted of a DWI by plea or by trial, that their life is forever going to be marred and their potential opportunities are going to be forever hurt, forever destroyed by the fact that they have that black mark on their record. And that is something that it's really important at all stages of representation to dispel that myth. I have represented doctors, I have represented lawyers, I have represented accountants, ton of nurses, people in all types of professional work, military people with immigration problems. There has been an enormous amount of different walks of life, different professions, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different employment situations where I have been involved. And for the most part, this isn't true of everything. So again, you don't want to tell people that their job's not going to be hurt, but for the most part, people are able to get the employment that they want despite a DWI. People are able to live the life that they want to despite the DWI. And so you have to be a little bit of a life coach when it comes to helping clients that are facing a DWI conviction not see this as the end of their professional dreams, not see this as a black mark that will forever mar their reputation and their lives. The person that cares about this the most is the client. Everybody else in the client's life, family member, friends, employers, whoever it might be, is not putting the same level of emphasis onto a DWI conviction as a client is putting onto that DWI conviction. So make sure you spend the time being that life coach to the client. Make sure that you spend the time telling them this is not going to be the end of the world. This is not going to be the worst thing that you have to face in your life. There's going to be bigger fish to fry. And maybe that's a bad thing, because you're going to have some worse things that are going to come down the road. But it's a good thing in terms of not looking at this as the absolute end of life as you know it. So work on that mentality from the first time the client calls your office to after the representation ends. Build up the client's self-esteem. Make sure that they know never to eliminate themselves from a job pool. Clients, I've had clients that will not apply for jobs because they have told themselves, nobody's going to want to hire me if I have a DWI on your record. And that is crazy talk. Tell them that. Tell them that it is not helpful to keeping their future prospects open to eliminate themselves from the job pool. Build up your client. Help them to understand that this is one small part of their life, that it's important, that they need to take the right next steps from this situation, but not to look at this as some sort of a end of existence when it comes to their future lives. That's part of your job as a counselor, as a legal life coach, to helping your client overcome that negative mentality. Hope this has been helpful. If you are interested in joining our Expunction initiative for veterans, we would love to have you be a part of that process. Please contact us, and I look forward to speaking with you again next time. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of the podcast. If you did, please share the podcast with another freedom fighter in the criminal defense community, and be sure to leave us a rating on iTunes. See you next time.